Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to our first episode of Arabic Uncovered, where we uncover important topics and important as well discussions that are concerning the Arabic language, education, as well as Islamic and cultural features. Today, we are joined by a special guest, Ustad Mukhlis from Sydney, and he is here with us today. Assalamu alaikum.
Ahlan wa sahlan. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah, doing very, very well.
Alhamdulillah, hayakallah. A bit of background about Ustad Mukhlis and his qualifications and his experiences. Ustad Mukhlis he graduated from the University of New South Wales from a degree of geochemistry. Then he pursued on studying Arabic from the University of Medina, majoring in Arabic from the language faculty of Arabic. And he is currently teaching Arabic language, as well as he's also been developing Arabic programs for the past 8 years. He's also an advocate of the Muslim in China, the Muslims in China, the Uyghur community, as well as he's also part of the Stand for Palestine team at this stage. Welcome, Ustad Mukhlis. Hayakallah. Wa ahlan wa sahlan bik.
Jazakallah khairan.
Allah yabarak feek. Let's first start with the first question, and that is, what is language and what's the purpose of language or languages in general?
Yeah, so Ibn Jinni, who is one of the standout scholars of the Arabic language, he says that language and defines it, and everyone seems to take his definition, but he says language is aswatun yu'abbiru biha kullu qawmin an agradihim. They're just sounds that people use to express their needs. So he actually takes a definition of language being something that's oral, and that's the origin of language, in that it's something that we speak, and that writing and reading sort of comes in a later stage. So really, the role of language, especially according to Ibn Jinni, and everyone sort of agrees with him, is that it is to communicate your needs. It's to be able to say, something that you need to someone else, and to be able to receive that from someone else as well. And if we then take it in a sort of wider sense, all our uses of language, even if it's not necessarily where, for example, I'm reading something that was written 1,000 years ago, I'm still that communication is still happening. So really, language is about communication.
Cool, fair enough. So it's not just letters and words. Some parents, they want their kids to learn Arabic. What's the purpose of that? What's their goal? What should their goal be?
Yeah, so look, the language is made up of letters and words. So those letters and words are what make up the language, but it is not the purpose of the language. So the purpose of, for example, us going out to read English, everyone will agree that I'm not going out to read English just to be able to say it without any understanding, right? So the English alphabet, learning the phonetic pronunciation and your ability to read English, that's just a tool that we use so that we're able to, for example, to get a job, so that we're able to, interact with other people, so that we're able to go online and so forth, right? So it's our ability to communicate, which is important part of the language. And that's what we're missing a lot with Arabic, in the sense that a lot of people have a very sort of narrow scope where they say, all right, sure, my kids need to learn how to read Quran. So they'll learn letters, they'll learn sounds. And they'll even get to the point where they're actually quite confident reading the Quran. And that's a great thing to do. There's so much reward, there's so much barakah that comes out of that. But because it just stops there, you haven't got to the point where there's actually any communication happening, where you're not sort of being able to take any messages, you're not able to sort of interact with that language, to taste the language, to feel the language, for it to have any sort of deep meaning. And that's a big injustice to the religion of Islam. Because the religion of Islam, the power of it is that it's so deep. Every single little aspect of our religion is actually very, very deep, very, very profound, very, very meaningful. And that's what makes Islam something that's so powerful. In the sense, it's not just like a dogmatic way, or I'm following this is what my father did, but rather I'm actually continuing to do something that I feel is really deep and it resonates with me. So when we don't allow ourselves that connection, we're doing a great injustice in the sense that eventually we might even find that some people don't feel connected to their prayer. They don't feel connected to the Quran. Why should they be saying these adhkar in the Arabic language but they're not connected to? And they say, what's the point of this religion? I'm just like, doing what my father taught me to do.
That's true.
And they're missing out on so much. And that it's a really, really big deal that, it can impact whether someone's a Muslim or not.
Yeah. In regards to the community and the Islamic Melbourne, Sydney, or just, like Muslims in the West.
Yes.
Are Islamic schools doing their role as teaching Arabic in the best way? If not, how can they navigate through that? How can they work towards that?
Yeah. Look, it's difficult to paint a brush and say everyone's like that because there are some standouts. We hear some of good results that come out from certain places. And we're talking about Islamic schools like this is your standard, Monday to Friday school, that generally they don't have good results. This is the culture in Australia, in Sydney at least, and from what I understand of Melbourne. And that's because everyone's lowered their standards. So the parents don't demand it. They want academics. They want like really good academic results out of their kids, right? So they don't then call the school to account. It's like, why aren't we doing really well for Arabic? Then schools, they're also about, sort of increasing their income, increasing their, NAPLAN results, or whatever results there are, I don't know what it is here. And then they say, look, let me get rid of all of that and let me focus on academics. So Arabic language is like, okay, 1 hour a week. Something that doesn't allow it to succeed.
Yep.
And because there's no culture, the kids don't sort of expect, I'm going to go to Islamic school, so I believe that I should be learning Arabic here. They don't expect it. So they're not there to learn Arabic. Arabic's just that sort of, 1 hour where they'll play around and whatever. So it just, like those three things interact with each other in a really negative way, and there's no results that come out of it. If the community changes from all of these different angles, and the culture was able to change, then I believe we can get results, right? But right now, it's a matter of priorities. Everyone sort of made Arabic really low on the priority, and really it's just become like a check. Like, all right, we do Arabic, by the way, because you sort of have to, but and wallah al-musta'an, it sort of doesn't end up in anything.
That's true. Maybe because also the Arabic language is only seen for Islamic studies or Islamic purposes. But the Arabic language is also for an economical benefit as well, for a social benefit. What are these benefits, and how can students that are in universities as well benefit from these?
Yeah, so number one, languages in general, and this isn't unique to the Arabic language. My belief as a Muslim is that all of languages are amazing because they're a gift from Allah.
100%.
وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ خَلْقُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافُ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ وَأَلْوَانِكُمْ The different tongues, the different languages that we have, right, is a sign from Allah. So all these different, the English language, Urdu, Bahasa Indonesia, Turkish, French, all of these languages, they're amazing. They have so much depth to it. There's so much culture, so much heritage, amazing literature. All of these languages are very, very important, right? So on one scale, learning language is important because it comes with all these things I mentioned, right? You're able to interact with that culture so much better. You're able to really understand these people. You're able to access that heritage. Then on top of that, there's a lot of benefits for you to know more than one language. I believe the default for a person, a human being that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created is that you know more than one language. Because the ayah actually says, اختلاف ألسنتكم, having different tongues. For someone to have more than one tongue. I believe that's the default because humans actually interact so much better, perform so much better when you know more than one language. Like there's a lot of studies about bilingualism. How, for example, people, when you get old, you have a very high chance of getting dementia. Of like sort of your cognitive brain ability is going. However, they found that if you know more than one language, then that reduces your chance or delays the onset of dementia. Yeah. And that's just amazing. That's like your brain is actually meant to be working with more than one language. But when you sort of allow yourself to stick in a mono, culture where it's like in Australia where it's just English only, yep. And that's where most of the world is heading, then we find that you're actually going sort of against that sort of fitra or the asl there. So languages in itself have so much benefit. And then when you choose some of the bigger languages around the world, there's a lot of benefit to it. There was this strange journey that I had where I went to Germany, right? Now, alhamdulillah, like as an English speaker, you can actually get around in Germany very, very easily because a lot of Germans speak relatively good English. So you can sort of converse with a lot of Germans in English and they understand and you understand them and so forth. except that there were a lot of migrant communities when I was in the mosque. And those are people that are new to Germany, so they had learnt German, but they didn't know English. They sort of didn't go through the schooling system in its entirety, so they didn't really know English. And I interacted with them through Arabic. It was really nice because there's this Chinese Australian guy who's in Germany and he's speaking Arabic to some of the other people in the mosque. And it was even cool because we had for example, some people from other parts of the world that were also there, someone from Bosnia. And we're all speaking Arabic together, me and Assyrian and German and all of that. And you feel like this is your identity as a Muslim, the identity of the Arabic language. The last point I'll make on that is that I spent a bit of time in Medina, inside the university. One of the cool things about the university there is that they actually they make a concerted effort to bring students from every country, right? So you'll get students that come from countries that you don't normally interact with those people, right? Let alone Muslims from those people. So it's really, really cool. And the joint language in the whole campus is Arabic, and proper Arabic as well, because there's no slang that sort of takes over. Everyone sort of speaks the Fusha Arabic. Yeah. And it's such an amazing feeling when you're speaking to Indonesian brothers, and then you're speaking to your Russian brothers, and then you're speaking to your brothers that are coming from from Equatorial Guinea, like a country you might not even know, but they're all speaking Arabic, right? And you sort of you feel united. This is the identity you have as a Muslim.
Fair enough. On that note of identity, what is identity, and how important is it in relation to language?
That's a very philosophical question. That's what is identity. Identity has a very, very big role in defining what you feel about yourself, like what you're comfortable with, what you feel comfortable with, and what you end up doing in your life. So do you identify as an Australian and so forth. And language plays a very big role in who you identify with, right? So, when you speak English, straight away, number one, you're sort of put in this circle of Australians. When you go travel around the world, everyone's like, oh, look at that Australian accent. But you can connect very, very easily with someone that also has good English. Very, very. So you have that very strong connection. And I believe that Arabic is a key part of your identity as a Muslim because it connects you with all other Muslims, or at least theoretically it should, right? Mm-hmm. On some level it does. It connects you with religion, and it's that uniting factor that it's like, so it makes you then prouder to be a Muslim. Whereas if your only language is English, then it's like I'm just proud to be an Australian or something like that, which is not necessarily wrong, but as in you're missing a key part of you as a Muslim. So you're missing that key part of your identity. There's a really interesting thing where Ibn Taymiyyah, Shaykh al-Islam, rahmatullah alayh, he says and encourages people that they should be speaking Arabic amongst themselves and that you shouldn't be speaking Persian, which is the other sort of common language at the time. Because he says this is part of your identity. And he says that you going out and speaking Arabic strengthens your identity and strengthens the Islamic identity. It sort of makes Arabic more common, and then makes it more sort of widespread that, this is the Islamic language that everyone's speaking. And that's so true. It means that, Arabic is very innately connected to Quran, very innately connected to, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, such that, let's say you listen to the words of poets that are non-Muslim. So you take, for example, Elia Abu Madi, a Christian poet, Lebanese, but is in America. This is past now. And when I read his poetry, I feel there's a religious tinge to it. That he's got this sort of, even though he's not trying to promote Islam, he's not promoting religion in general even, right? He's just promoting identity, but I feel like there's a religious taste to it, right? That this religion is sort of innately connected to the Quran, innately connected to Islam, such that even people that try to escape that don't believe in that, they can't.
Yeah, I've realized that. Like many students, they come to learn Arabic and they're not Muslim.
Yeah.
But later on, they realize that you will need to cover some Islamic features, culture. SubhanAllah, it's quite interesting how you see that in Arabic language.
Yeah.
Would you believe that the Arabic language contributed to or they say that the Arabic language serves as a vessel for Islam.
100%. So,
And how is that?
look, it's very, very interesting because, like, we have what's called modern standard Arabic,
Yep.
which is basically very, very similar to the Arabic that was spoken back in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, 1400 years ago, but we just add some modern vernacular to it, and we sort of have certain styles, and we sort of it's actually narrower than what it used to be. We've sort of narrowed the way that we speak. You know, we've removed certain expressions, certain ways of speaking, and said, look, it should be like this. But we've increased the amount of vocabulary because we have to use words like tilfaz and sayyara with like the modern connotations and all of that.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah. So, now, that's actually very strange. Because if you compare that to other languages, if you take English and you try to read English 1,000 years ago, you find that very difficult because the language has evolved a lot, right? Now, and that's not to say that Arabic doesn't evolve, it does evolve, but it's anchored down by the Quran. It's anchored down by this strong religious, foundation, which is Quran, the Sunnah, and that is actually also because we have this immense heritage where early on in the sort of history of Islam, let's say the first 3 or 4 centuries, the scholars, the Salaf, they made a very, very big focus on the Arabic language and said, look, we can't lose this language. We need to study everything about this language. You need to preserve this language because this language is our connection and our key to the Quran. You know, without all of this, you know, we've lost our religion. So they've made an immense effort. They went out to the desert to record whatever poetry they could, and they memorized it, and they wrote it down, and they analyzed it, and they made them into rules and this and that.
Interesting. Yeah.
And that's very, 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 very important because that meant that then Islam served as a vessel. And then they used that vessel and they said, look, now from our deep understanding of the Arabic language, we're able to derive rules. We're able to, you know, say this is, you know, the ruling from these words. And we were at the forefront of linguistics. We were the forefront of lexicology, which is basically looking at dictionaries and all of that. We were at the forefront of all of that because we did it as a service to the Quran, as a service to Islam. And then sort of like, you know, as we got weaker and further from the Arabic language and further from the religion, then we weakened, and we're you know, if you compare linguistics in the Arab world compared to linguistics in the West, we're very, very behind.
Wow.
But that's like what Arabic was. It was that vessel for Islam. And they serviced that vessel so much just so that it could uphold this Islam and people's connection to it.
Fair enough. So the Arabic language is a deep language. What does that mean? What features of the Arabic language or what things make it so deep and so profound?
I just want to make a clarification first.
Sure.
Which is that I don't believe in like saying best languages.
Of course.
Because it's like saying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created birds and, you know, fish and, you know, different animals and saying, no, this is a better creation of Allah. Right? All of them are signs of Allah. All of them are amazing. Like, we actually don't know origins of language and things like that because it's having such a complex system that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it very, 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 you know, deep, and it's amazing, all languages. What makes Arabic unique is one of the things I already mentioned, which is the fact that Arabic is very, very consistent from back then to now, right? So it hasn't changed a lot. The second is that Arabic is somewhat more of a pure language in the sense that it's preserved itself and hasn't absorbed too much of other languages. Let's compare that to English. English is like a hodgepodge of like Latin with a bit of French, a bit of German, other sort of European languages, and so it sort of doesn't have a nice grammatical, logical sort of thing that all fits together. The grammar of English is actually really, really difficult and very, very messy. But Arabic is very clean, it's very engineered, and that's a very, very nice part of the language. Right? Another nice part of the language is that it's very, very pleasant to hear. So the sounds of the Arabic language is actually very, very clean, and the Arabs had this really, really big emphasis on having the word, you know, pronounced in a really nice way. So I think there's really nice oral part to Islam, and that's very powerful because once you hear the Quran, it's recited nicely, and you can also connect it to the meaning. That has a very powerful impact on you. Just the sounds of the language.
The sound.
Yeah, and the last thing that I'll mention is that Arabic is also a language that has many possibilities in, like all languages have a lot of possibilities in the way that you express yourself. But I believe Arabic more so because it's very flexible, the structure of the Arabic language. You know, English, you have a certain structure that you need to strictly speak to, put the subject first and so forth. In Arabic, you don't need to do that. You can play around with the structure a lot more, right? Which creates a lot more possibilities of expression. You can express yourself in more ways, which means a certain expression can be, you can analyze it, and this is what the scholars of Balagha did. They analyzed every single sentence and looked and tried to come to a conclusion. Why is this way that the words used in the Quran like that so amazing, right? And then we add to that the depth of the actual words. Like, I'll give you an example. The word nifaq means to be a hypocrite, right? Hypocrisy, right? And munafiq is a hypocrite and so forth. But for an Arab, they can take it back to the root and say that comes from the root of nafaqa, which like is about tunnels. Like a nafaq is like to go underneath.
Yep.
So they can see that nifaq is really on the surface, you can't see anything, but underneath there's all these tunnels going on, and that creates a connotation, right? The Arabs would have understood that connotation, but we sort of don't understand if we sort of translate it back into English as a hypocrite, and it allows this really, really deep connection with different things. Subhanallah.
It's amazing, subhanallah. On that note, which other language would you recommend to learn besides Arabic or after Arabic?
Look, language is about the benefit. So I think it's very, very clear that the biggest benefit is to know English. Obviously, we're saying this in English-speaking audience. Everyone already knows English.
Language, yeah.
So let's skip that. But really, you should be looking at what benefits you most in your dunya, right? Like benefits you dunya and akhirah. Sorry, I didn't mention just dunya, of course. So English language, you should know it, right? Because you need to be strong. You need to have the dunya in your hand, right? So you need to be strong in the English language. You need to be strong in Arabic. And I believe as a Muslim anywhere in the world, strong in English, strong in Arabic, and strong in just whatever culture you come from, whatever heritage you come from, because that's your culture, that's very deep, and you then have the ability to sort of interact with people, with your family, and you have the ability to benefit them. You have the ability to connect with them in a better way. So if you come from a Bengali background, then you should know Bangla. If you know from a Turkish background, you should know Turkish. If you come from an Arabic slang background, so for example, you come from Lebanon, you should know the Lebanese slang on top of Fusha. So you should basically, I believe every Muslim should know 3 languages.
Fair enough. You mentioned a phrase there of balagha. Many of the audience don't know what balagha is.
Yes.
What's balagha and how would you define it?
So balagha is...
And what's cool about it? What's so interesting?
What's so interesting about it?
Yeah.
All right, great. Balagha is basically about why a certain expression is the most appropriate expression for that context. Yeah? So to say the way that this sentence was used in that context was the most powerful and most appropriate use of that sentence, right? And it comes in many, many different levels, from the word use to the structure, to like what you mentioned, what you omitted, what you put forward, and so forth. This is what balagha is. And the ulama developed as a science. In English, we would translate to rhetoric.
Yeah.
But it's a science that they used to try to explain the miraculous nature of the Quran, to try to increase the understanding of the Quran and the other texts. And I believe it's very, very important. Imam Suyuti actually mentions in one of his books that it's one of the things يُكَمِّلْ بِهِ الْإِيمَانِ, that it perfects your iman. That it's one of the things that you can increase and have a very, very high level of iman with studying of balagha. So it's something that's really, really important because but it's strange because it's a science. So it's got rules and this, but it's not hard in science. It's not like grammar. Grammar has this is right, this is wrong, and it's very steadfast, right? Structure. It's like mathematics. Yep. But balagha is sort of closer towards literature and taste. I can taste that this is actually really nice and so forth. It's it's similar to the analysis that you did in VCE, when you they gave you Hamlet and you had to talk about certain things of we're bringing back some nightmares here, but that analysis of the text is very, very similar to what Balagha is about. But like as Muslims, we pioneered this because the ulama used it for tafsir. They used it to be able to derive rules of fiqh. They used all of that to also explain the miraculous nature of the Quran.
MashaAllah. So in regards to language, how should a person approach language, especially the Arabic language? How should you approach it to study and learn it? And what should your aim be? Because there's many students who say, I want to learn Arabic to understand Islam or to understand the Quran. But the issue here is that the Quran, if you try to understand it just by learning the Arabic words, you can't really, because the Quran has much more meaning behind the words, or else it's a literal translation, which makes no sense. So what would the level be to reach to study Arabic?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. It's as if someone came to you, and said, I want to learn English just so that I can read Shakespeare, right? And what do you then do? Do you then just say, all right, you have zero English, but let's just start slowly going through Shakespeare, start to get you to, here's Hamlet first. That's a very, very difficult way, right? I believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave everyone an innate ability to learn any language. So it's not about you being able to academically go and say, I'm going to go and do it very, very hard and start to analyze the Quran from down pat. Allah gave you this gift of picking up a language, right? Which is something that you speak, something you communicate with other people. And I believe you need to take that gift. And that every single person can learn Arabic. It's not difficult, but you need to learn it like a language. So don't take it in an unnatural academic way where you sit down and try to analyze it, from the beginning and start with some very high level literature. For us, it's the highest level literature because we believe it's divine. So instead of doing that, and I think one of the features that make it divine is that you can actually do that. You can actually start to analyze it as a complete beginner, and you will find it profound. It's profound on so many different levels. Allah didn't just make the Quran something that's amazingly deep for the people right at the top of the ladder. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it something that's available and something you can connect with all around, right? But obviously the more effort you put in, the deeper it becomes. And if you are able to go through it and treat Arabic like a language, so something that you speak, that you communicate, that you feel comfortable with, then it allows you to then naturally interact with the Quran, right? It's a long journey, right? But the advantage of what I said is that from a sort of macro scale, like a large scale, it actually means that our community finds it easier and easier to learn the Arabic language as we go on, when we treat it like a language. Right? If everyone just individually studies, and I have my own Quran study, and I sort of learns a bit of vocabulary here and there, and I just have my own connection with it, khalas, it ends with me. But once it's a social feature, I go with Hamza and we speak Arabic together, and my kids speak Arabic with me, and then we go to Arabic community, we play games in Arabic, and then it just spreads. It becomes so easy to pick up a language, right? Like kids can, and a good example because they pick it up easily, but I believe adults can also pick it up easily once you have the right social structure there. And we as a Muslim, if we take that then sort of seriously, then it becomes very easy for us all to learn the Arabic language. Thus, the way to do it is to treat it like a language.
Fair enough. If you're a parent, and you want to teach your kids Arabic, and you're, let's say, generally, if you're from a Arabic-speaking background as well, but you want your kids to speak Arabic, how should you achieve that?
When we speak, we mean speaking Fusha Arabic?
Fusha, or even semi-dialect, semi-Fusha as well.
I'm not a purist, right? In the sense that you should just speak be really fasih and say all the proper heavy, strong words.
I'm not really with that 100%. Yeah.
I'm actually, I had a professor. He advised me. He said, when you go back, he said, "Allim al-fusha al-mukhaffafa." It's like a fusha that's sort of like a little bit closer to slang, where you just put a sukoon at the end of most words. You want just make it something that people can speak. Don't over Actually, the Prophet ﷺ he forbade you to and yuqa'ir fil kalam, right? Al-mufayhiq, people that you try to speak at a level that's beyond you, and try to make yourself out to be some sort of really posh guy that knows
Of course.
So anyway, the advice for them to learn Arabic is that you need a teacher to take them in the beginner level. Because when you don't understand anything, the language, you're a complete beginner, you need to invest in the beginner stage with a teacher, right? And you need them to go through, and you need to be consistent for, let's say, about 2 years part-time. After that, throw them to cartoons, right? And I believe that's a successful strategy. It's like, I believe someone needs about 1,000 hours to become very, very good in the language, comfortable, you know, not native speaker, but getting, you know, close to that. And you can't expect someone to attend 1,000 hours in a classroom, right? But the first 200 hours, you need that in the classroom. Otherwise, you won't succeed. And like, they can be just watching those cartoons, but they won't understand what's going on. Eventually, they'll find it boring because they don't understand the plot. But once they get past that in the beginner stage, they can watch Adnan Walina. They can watch, you know, Muhammad al-Fatih in Arabic.
Yeah.
They can watch, like, there's so many, like, those are classics, right?
Classics, yeah.
But even now, like, you know, there's a lot of things that are like dubbed on Netflix and so forth in the Arabic language. Exciting stuff.
Yeah.
You know, there's one of my students saying, like, I'm watching Avatar the Airbender in Arabic.
Wow.
Like, that's amazing. Like, it's, and he showed me the dubbing's not bad, you know.
Wow.
So
is the dubbing in Fusha or is it in dialects?
Fusha.
Amazing.
Most dubbing now is in Fusha because they've realized that it's a little bit hard for them to dub in a certain dialect because like the other dialects are disadvantaged.
Yeah.
So what did they choose? Before it used to be Egyptian. They used to usually dub in Egyptian because Egypt was sort of like the media hub. But then that sort of decentralized. And even like, for example, Disney, they changed, Disney was dubbing in, not that I'm encouraging Disney anyway, but
Yes,
you know, they were dubbing in Egyptian slang and they moved to MSA Fusha. You know,
Wow.
even Disney, yeah. So.
But for kids that are growing up in Arabic families,
Yes.
They tend to see others who speak Arabic as, wow, you've made it, like you actually speak Arabic. So you're saying that you should be exposed to the language through the media, through TV shows or films in Fusha. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, but also at home. I didn't sort of mention that, but let me give you an example. You got parents that sort of have broken, let's say, Lebanese slang, right? So they're not very confident, but they can sort of express themselves. They know a fair bit of vocabulary, and they feel shy speaking that even to their kids, right? There's no such wrong thing as speaking incorrectly, right? No one's going to say that this is wrong. Speak that even to your kids. Even make it like half English, half Arabic, Arabizi, whatever, right? They're going to pick up a lot of vocabulary, right? So you're actually giving them a lot of vocabulary, even in slang. SubhanAllah, when I teach students that already know slang Arabic, compared to students that don't, like non-Arabs and don't have that slang, it's 3 times harder to teach the student that doesn't know slang. Slang students, they're absolutely flying, right? Yeah. Because there's like all this vocabulary that they've built in, and you know they're just like such easy students to teach. So speak at home, you know, teach them slang. Even if your slang is broken Fusha anyway, right? So, like sort of adjusted like that. But even if your slang is broken, just speak it anyway, you know. And
which dialect is more closest towards Fusha, in your opinion? In your opinion?
Yeah.
Al-Masri?
Look, no, definitely not. I admire Egyptians for how fast they speak. They're just like, but I can't unfortunately say that it's very close to Fusha. It's quite hard for me to understand Egyptian.
You have the Maghribi as well? The Maghribi, the Moroccan, Algerian.
Maghribi is on the other side of it. It's even worse in Egyptian.
You're the best speakers as well, by the way.
Look, I spent most of my time in the Arab world in Saudi Arabia. And you know, a lot of people did point out words that they say that are even like considered slang. They're not like common MSA usage words, but they actually point out that they're originally like Arabic.
Yeah.
Because they're actually connected to the original Arabs. If you look at all the Arabs, for example, on the northern African peninsula, they never were Arab speakers. They used to speak like, you know, Berber and all these other, Amazighi. So like, but in the Arab peninsula, like they've actually preserved these words that were like ancient Arabic words that you will find in the dictionary, for example. So I believe they are closer in like, you know, like Saudi Arabia and so forth. But maybe there's a bit of bias because I've spent more time there.
Fair enough. That's all right. Personally, I've got an opinion that I think is true. I don't know, and that is the Arabic language is a multicultural language. Sure. It is multicultural because many scholars in the Arabic language that are not Arabs, they contributed to it. It spread through many countries as well, and others also contributed to it, either academically through Nahu or even through the artistic side of the khat as well?
Yeah.
Would you believe so?
Yes.
Would you agree with that?
So, this is interesting because when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says a'jami in the Quran, the scholars interpreted that as someone that doesn't speak Arabic. Normally we might translate that as a non-Arab. A'jami, would translate that as a non-Arab. But if you look at the tafsir of it, they say an a'jami alladhi la yufsih, the one that doesn't speak, like is not able to express himself in Arabic, not able to speak Arabic. So in actual fact, I consider myself Arabi. When in the ayah says a'jamiyyun wa Arabi, I put myself in the. So it's actually not even about lineage. It's not about like look at my lineage. I've got Chinese background. I still consider myself Arabi, right? Because I have that tongue, right? And I believe that in that sense, very very multicultural. Because it's like they're saying marhaban, ahlan wa sahlan, everyone come, learn this language, and then you're one of us, So and that's what happened back then. Because it was easy, because there was this social, political structure such that everyone had to learn Arabic because that was the language of the the government of the Khilafah and so forth. But you're 100% correct because the scholars of Arabic, a very very large portion of them were non-Arabs, right? So they were able to sort of really really focus on that, and absolutely amazing, just the contributions. Unfortunately, we find ourselves in the world that we live in, nation states, countries, everyone sort of divided themselves on those borders. It's like, I'm Turkish, I'm Lebanese, he's Syrian, he's from Iraq. But really, we never had that concept before. It wasn't, even though there were tribalism and stuff like that, Islam came to demolish that, right? And that's actually made it a little bit worse in the sense that things have become more defined like that. Yeah, subhanAllah.
Amazing. The next question that I had was in regards to you personally and the Arabic language. What fascinates you in the Arabic language?
Yeah. I was a bit of a grammar nerd, right? So, a science background. I really like things logically. So, alhamdulillah, I had teachers that guided me to learn Arabic in a natural way, like to speak Arabic and so forth. And I really, really appreciate that because that's important, right? And that's what I encourage other people to do. You need to, speaking, listening, all of these things need to be part of it. Taking the grammatic approach for a beginner is not recommended. But I really liked grammar because I found that Arabic, it worked out really, really nicely. It was like a little challenge, like a little, math equation that you're trying to solve. And that's what really, so I found that was something that I became, good at, that I liked. I found that it was quite beneficial because it helps you in your ability to unpack the Quran, your ability to unpack the words of the scholars, to read the tafsir and so forth. And so I just continued that journey. So that was the thing that really drew me in. And it's a journey that's enjoyable because for us in the Arabic faculty in Medina, we were like studying poems, and it was really enjoyable stuff. Like it wasn't like very very dry things. Even though like grammar in some places is dry, but there was always that sort of nice sauce that came with it when you studied, for example, that it was related to this ayah. He said, "Wow, I'm benefiting quite a lot." So those were the things that really encouraged me to learn Arabic. That was my big thing on it. And alhamdulillah, my teachers they guided me that in terms of the Arabic sciences. This is for someone that's already sort of competent in the Arabic language. That you learn the Arabic sciences, and the basic science is sarf and nahu, learning about the words, the structure of words, and learning about the structure of sentences. But then both of those then go into the next science, which we already talked about, which is balagha. And that is where you actually get to really feel and enjoy the fact and be able to taste the power of the Quran, the power of the words of the Prophet ﷺ, the power of really nice, written poetry and so forth. And it was just amazing to be able to access that. And yeah.
So the last question of this session, that is, what's your advice for a parent and for a normal student but studying Arabic or wants to study Arabic? What's your advice for each of these two people, a parent and a student?
Yeah, my advice is that you try to stay very, very consistent, at least for like a period of a year or two, right? Because the challenge that you have is that as a beginner in the Arabic language doesn't have his firm footing. If he stops, the journey stops. There's a very, very high chance that the journey doesn't continue, and so forth. There's all like these challenges of the beginner stage. Once you get past the beginner stage, it's smooth sailing, right? Because even if you don't do Arabic for a while, you still have it built into you, right? You still have the ability to, just occasionally watch something, to listen to something, listen to the khutbah. Whenever you're reading Quran, you're actually benefiting, right? You're going through that benefit once you pass this beginner stage. So I say it's like this big hurdle in the beginning that you need to pass. And I believe this hurdle is about 200 hours of
Wow.
instruction. 200 hours is if you put in a lot of hours, like 5 hours a week, you'll finish that in a year. Let's say a little bit less, 2 years, right? So my advice for parents or for Arabic learners is to put a big emphasis on making Arabic high priority at the beginning. High priority for a period of 1 or 2 years. You can know the priority later on. That's fine, right? But make it high priority. This is one of the top 3 things I'm going to be doing this year. Even if other things come in the way, I'm going to say, nah, sack that. I'm focusing on Arabic, And that actually will allow you to succeed, bi'ithnillah, Just like the Arabic proverb says, "Man jadda wajad, wa man zara hasad, wa kullu man sara ala ad-darbi wasal." I'm going to focus on the last part. Is that whoever continues on the path, then eventually he gets there, right?
Oh, that's
the
amazing.
problem is that that people will say, "Oh, look, I've run out of petrol, I'm going to stop," and they don't refuel.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Alhamdulillah. Allah yabarak fi akhi Mukhlis. It was nice having you. Allah yazik al-khair for all those beneficial points and details. Allah yabarak fik. We'll see you next time, inshallah ta'ala.
Jazakumullah
Wassalamu
khair.
alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.